Interstate 95. Yeah. Alright, we are looking at Interstate 95 in New England today, and we are getting two new states. It's been a long time since we've had two new states in an episode in this 400 episode series. We look at my opening picture here. I was not on Interstate 95 until a little later in life, but I knew the importance of it when I was a kid. When I was in elementary school, my friend went to Connecticut to see his grandma, and I asked him to take a Polaroid of I-95 for me. So, here is the actual picture of I-95 taken in 1989 or something. So I-95, as we know, if we take a look at the route, goes from Houlton, Maine to Miami, Florida. And today we are talking about the part from the Connecticut border with New York until the Canadian border with Maine. You're watching Control City Freak. This is the YouTube channel where we talk about interstate highways and the places that they're signed to go to. If you dig this kind of content, why not give us a like? And if you really like it, why not subscribe? Yeah, subscribe. And here's the part in the video where I tell you that you can request your exit for a $5 super sticker or $5 super thanks in the comments. I-95 is closed for now, although you can still make requests. They just won't be there until the supercut episodes. And we are wide open for I-96, 97, 99. All right, let's talk about northbound I-95 in New England. And we will start right about where we left off at the Connecticut-New York border. We see Connecticut welcomes you, and we are in Greenwich now. In this area, just like in New York, we are assigned 95 North New Haven. And here we have our first exit request, exit 11 for Darien, Connecticut. And that is requested by Drew Jones. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm actually a little familiar with Darien. I had a friend who lived near there. Turned me on to a band called Mock Turtle Soup. You ever heard of them, Mr. Drew Jones? And interestingly, on this sign, we have this blank sign too, and I went back into Street View, and at least all the way back to 2008 there's no sign there, so it fell off a long time ago, or they never built it. Next up we have an exit request from Henry Bustell, and it is for the Sherwood Island Connector, exit 18, so thank you so much. I really appreciate that. We've also got an exit request from J. Lee Verchin, I hope I'm saying that right, exit 22, which is both a service plaza and for Round Hill Road. So thank you so much for that request. The first kind of major place we get in Connecticut is actually not New Haven, it is Bridgeport, which is actually larger than New Haven. A lot of people feel like Bridgeport should be signed since it's the largest city in Connecticut, but I actually kind of understand the New Haven thing. And here is a look at Bridgeport. Bridgeport is a more industrial town, so if we look to the right, we see this factory right near the bridge and the port. Here we have exit 34 Milford, and this one was requested by me. I actually got off here one time. I stayed in Milford, the only time I've ever stayed in Connecticut. Stayed in a terrible hotel, worst hotel I've ever stayed at that cost over $100. I mean, I've stayed at some really bad ones that cost less than that. On the above $100 level, by far the worst one I've ever stayed at. A little further down the road, we've got exit 38 for the Merritt and Wilbercross Parkways. I did take the Merritt Parkway back to New York from Milford, and it was a lovely drive. I will cover that one day. We get to New Haven, and we have our junction with I-91 signed north for Hartford, and now we are on 95 north for New London. I'm okay with 95 being signed New Haven out of New York over Bridgeport just because of this big junction with I-91. That's the main reason I do support New Haven being signed there, because of this and the fact that it's fairly large and probably more well-known than Bridgeport. 95 north New London, I do not get down with at all. This should be 95 north Providence, if not Boston. And here's a look at downtown New Haven as we skirt by it. At random interchanges, it is 95 North New London. And here at exit 69, it is just 95 North. And we get this major Route 9 for Essex and Hartford at 69. Nice. And we meet 395. The Connecticut Turnpike used to take 95 and 395's routes and was a ordinal numbered road, and then 95 started a new ordinal numbered road at this point. Now 95 is mileage numbered and it will split off here, and though the Connecticut Turnpike still exists in pavement, it no longer is a toll road. Here in the greater New London area, we are now signed 95 north for Providence. And here we cross the New London Bridge over the River Thames. May as well be the New Thames River, I guess, since it's New London. Real creative naming in this part of Connecticut. And at random interchanges, it is 95 North Providence, as well it should be. Next, we get to exit 92, and this exit was requested by Percs A, so I do appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right, we get a new state. We discover beautiful Rhode Island. Let's see what we can discover. In Rhode Island, 95 random interchanges, it is signed 95 North Providence, as you would expect. And wow, look at this. A 2-lane carriageway on I-95, 4 lanes altogether, in the Northeast. You don't see this very much. We're going to meet 295, signed north for Woonsocket, which I thought was a pretty funny name the first time I ever drove by this, and 95 north for Providence. And now we're meeting 195, signed for East Providence and Cape Cod, so it's going to go over to Massachusetts, or at least in that direction. Here's a look at downtown Providence. Looks like they're doing pretty major construction on 95. It's not downtown that's torn up, it's just 95's northbound lanes there. And in downtown Providence, we just get 95 north and 95 south from this downtown interchange. But at other random interchanges, 95 north is signed for Pawtucket and Boston, so that makes sense. Here is exit 43. This is an exit request by Ken Depot, or Ken Depot. I'm not sure which way you're pronouncing it there. And it is for East Street and Central Falls, and it is the way he uses to get home to Cumberland, Rhode Island. Shortly after that, we enter Massachusetts. We don't get a Welcome to Massachusetts sign, at least one that I could find. Just an Entering Attleboro, Mass sign here. We get this nice sign, 495 and 93, how many minutes? Although this is kind of hilarious. There's no traffic on there at all, and they're saying 6 miles to 495, 7 minutes? That's not the way any Massachusetts people I know drive. That's not the way that's gonna work. 6 miles is gonna be more like 3.5 minutes tops. We are meeting 295 again. So 295, it's the Providence Ring Road, but we have the second intersection with it in Massachusetts and not in Rhode Island because, well, there's not much Rhode Island for it to go through. And it is signed for Woonsocket and Warwick. We're meeting 495, so 495 is signed north for Worcester and south for Cape Cod. Although I understand why they're doing it that way, but it's really kind of going more east to Cape Cod and west toward Worcester. On 495, 95 itself is signed 95 North Boston. And we are meeting I-93, so I-93 is being signed North Boston, and 95 now signs for North Portsmouth, New Hampshire. That's the next sort of major control city north of Boston, and we're skipping all the Boston suburbs and going straight to Portsmouth from down here, although it might be faster to take 93 if traffic's not bad. And 95, the biggest, most traveled road in the US, comes to a single-lane cloverleaf interchange here. At random interchanges, 95 is signed north for Peabody, is what I've been told is how it's pronounced, and Portsmouth. Going up 95, we have this exit for the T Riverside Station. The one time I went to Boston, this is actually where I got off. I parked at some random parking lot and then just rode the T into town. Stayed in town, never drove within the Boston city limits, just took public transportation around, walked around. It was great. And now we're meeting I-90, signed for Boston and Albany, which totally makes sense. And we have the best route for Logan Airport at this interchange as well. No pull through for 95, so that's kind of a bummer. However, on ramps coming onto 95 from 90, we get a North 95 Portsmouth, New Hampshire sign. All right, little history here. We got Lexington, Concord, Boston, all there. Nice. We've got a wrong way concurrency with I-95 and US 3, and we have this major northbound US 3 freeway heading for Nashua, New Hampshire. So this is a pretty big junction here. And we were meeting I-93 again, 93 signed north for Concord, New Hampshire, and we get no pull through for 95. However, on 93, it is signed for 95 North Peabody, which I don't like at all. Why not sign it for Portsmouth? If we have it signed for Portsmouth at the southern intersection with I-93, why not at the northern one when we're much closer to Portsmouth? Here in Peabody, we have the junction with 128. We've been on 128 this whole time. 128 is splitting off, or rather, 95 is splitting off. 128 is going straight to Gloucester? I'm very bad with some of these New England names. And 95 north for Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And this exit was requested by Zach R, so I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Random interchanges, 95 is signed north for Salisbury and Portsmouth, NH. So Massachusetts, always wanting to put some kind of Massachusetts thing on there. Here's our exit for Salisbury, and we are getting west 110 to 495 because there is no exit onto southbound 495 from northbound 95. And welcome to New Hampshire. Live free or die. Awesome sign. At random interchanges, we see 95 assigned north for Portsmouth, and it is going to be a toll road once again. I guess that's just the New Hampshire way, that indefinite article there. And conveniently on the interstate, we've got a liquor store that you can only access from the interstate. So New Hampshire. Here is our toll booth, and we see cars $2, so like the other toll in New Hampshire, not too expensive. Although this is from a few years ago, it has gone to just open road tolling now, so I'm not actually sure what the cost is anymore. And we're getting toward Portsmouth, and 95 gets the famed all Maine points control city. So instead of getting Portland or something like that, just all Maine points. And a random interchange as it is, 95 North Maine. I guess they can't squeeze all Maine points onto that sign. And we are crossing the river in Portsmouth. We have a look at Portsmouth out there, out our window here. And right away, exit 1 for Kittery and Navy Yard. This exit was requested by Ayyar. I hope I'm saying that the right way, and thank you so much for that. Exit 2 we see is going to be for Kittery as well, as is exit 3. And after exit 1 and 2, we get Maine. Welcome home. Our last state sign that we're going to have. Welcome home. That seems awful presumptuous of Maine. At random interchanges, it is signed 95 North and Maine Turnpike for Portland and Augusta. I feel like just Portland does the job, but okay. And here we are at exit 3 for Kittery and South Berwick, and we get a pull-through for Portland, Augusta. The mileage sign, Augusta is the last city, and Portland is the second last, so both of those are signed. Here's our last exit before the toll, exit 7. And this exit was requested by Mickey 1928 Geo, and this is the route he used to take to Kennebunkport, which I went to last summer, pretty interesting place. And he went there because he used to do IT work at the Bush compound for George Bush 41. So that's pretty interesting. Thank you so much for the exit request. And here's another exit to Kennebunkport, although yeah, to get to the actual way where he was going, the previous exit would have been easier to do it, even though it wasn't signed there. This exit was requested by Borp, and it's pretty interesting. It says here, not an exit, hotel and conference center. And if we take a look at it, the exit, if you follow that exit, it just takes you to this Ramada Inn, but then you could loop through the Ramada Inn parking lot and get out onto regular traffic, it looks like. So looks like there's nothing to stop you from, ditching your toll and getting off here if you wanted to do it that way. And now we meet 195 for Old Orchard Beach, and this is an exit that I've been on pretty recently. Would like to see an overhead sign there. Now we get exit 42 for Scarborough, and this was requested by Jacob Rothstein, so I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And now we meet 295. It is splitting off here for downtown Portland, and 95 North is signed for Lewiston and Augusta. Again, I feel like just Augusta would probably work, although Augusta, you can reach Augusta by taking 295, and you could actually reach it faster. So honestly, 95 North here should just be Lewiston. Alright, I'm going to take a crack at this. Kewejuankenobie requested this exit for Maine Mall Road and South Portland, and this is actually in 2019 because there's construction on it now, so this is looking back a couple years on Street View. And thank you so much for the request. Here's our exit for the Portland Jetport. They don't call it an airport in Maine, they call it a jetport. And now we're getting exit 52 to 295. This is technically unsigned 495. Going over to Freeport, and 95 still signed for Lewiston and Augusta. 95 used to follow this ramp here, the 295 one, and 495 used to continue on the turnpike, but they have switched the numbers to keep 95 entirely on the turnpike. However, the 95 routing was actually faster than the 495 routing. Now, if you stay on 95, it actually takes longer than if you take 295, and it costs more. And here we are in Lewiston, so now we're on 95 toll Augusta. And we don't have a southbound exit to 295, so here is the road that will take us to 295, exit 102. We're in the Augusta area, so we are now signed 95 North for Waterville and Bangor. Again, I feel like Bangor could just do the job by itself here. And at random interchanges, it is 95 North Waterville, which is a little weak. And on this mileage sign, we get Sydney and Waterville, which is only 16 miles away. Why not Bangor? And in Waterville, we do get Bangor, 57 miles away, which isn't that far. It should have been signed from Augusta. It's only 77 miles between them. And in Bangor, we get 95 now signed for Orono and Holton. Orono I've not heard of before. Orono, not sure. I'd never heard of it before, but apparently it's where the University of Maine's main campus is. So that is a sensible thing to sign, and much larger place than Holton. Holton's just well known amongst road geeks for being the end of I-95. 395 for downtown Bangor. At this exit in Bangor, we get Orono 9 miles away, so not Holton, but Orono here. And in the Orono area, we get a through traffic sign. Wow, we're in the middle of nowhere, but we get a through traffic sign. I guess people who are not University of Maine students can drive on through. At random interchanges in this part of Maine, we now get Howland. instead of Holton. So Howland. Bigger town than Holton, so makes sense. Speed limit 75 out here. Quite impressive to see that in the Northeast, although honestly here in Maine, northeast of the Northeast. Just like 95 down in Miami really is south of the South, so that is what is an impressive thing about I-95. And the mileage signs, Howland 24 and Holton 109. In Howland, Medway is the sign at the interchange and not Holton. However, once we get to Medway, Holton is finally our control city at random interchanges. And wow, it's amazing how little of traffic there is in this part of Maine, way up north here. And here we are at exit 302, wow. And we get US 1 for Holton. Right here. It's not the end though, we still have further north to go. We have North, New Brunswick, and Canada. And we are going to be meeting New Brunswick Highway 95, I think that's New Brunswick and not Canada, for Woodstock and Fredericton, straight ahead. And to go the other way, get off at 305. And we finally reach our final exit of I-95, exit 305 for US 2. It is Holton International Airport and Industrial Park. So I-95 northbound starts at US 1 and ends at US 2. And we see north of US 2, we don't see much because it is 2007 Street View, but here's what it looks like. And that is an End 95 sign, I believe. And we do get to the Canadian border, and that is as far as we shall go. All right, let's take a look at southbound I-95. So we will begin in Canada, and we have this sign for New Brunswick Highway 95 to I-95, Holton, Maine. I'm almost surprised to put Holton on there instead of just Maine. And here is our American Customs and Immigration to head into the USA. And at the very beginning, we just get 95 South and US 2 for Holton Industrial Park. And we see we are signed for Bangor right from the beginning, which I think is the correct choice. We meet US 1 for Holton, the main exit for downtown Holton, Maine. And again, at random interchanges, it is 95 South, Bangor. Bangor is the bottom line city on the sign as well. And we meet 395 for Bangor, and now we get 95 South, Newport, Augusta. If you're going to put two cities on there, Augusta, Portland, come on. And we see at random interchanges, it is 95 South for Augusta. And here, exit 109A, we are getting the Augusta exit, 200 miles into Maine, wow. And we see that there's another exit sign missing. Although this one, if we go back like 3 or 4 years, we see there was a sign there, so it must have fallen off or something, and they just haven't replaced it. We're meeting 295, and this is a terribly signed exit. 295 South for Gardner, Brunswick, 95 for Lewiston, Portland. It is faster and cheaper to take 295 to Portland. It is free, in fact, and much faster. So 95 should be signed for Lewiston only, not for Portland, and 295 should be signed for Portland. This is the schemiest toll scam I've ever seen. Here is what the toll booth looks like, getting that $4 from the people they trick into driving to Portland on this road. And at the random interchanges early on, we get Lewiston and Portland being on it after the 295 split is okay, but Lewiston by itself could do the job too. South of Lewiston, kind of cool, we get South 95 for Portland and Boston. Wow, and 95 for Lewiston and Augusta. And now we're meeting 295, or the 495 road to 295 for Freeport. Although at that junction, 95 is sounding Portland Kittery instead of Boston. Boston goes away, we get Kittery, which is definitely a big downgrade. And 95 North, Auburn, Lewiston. Looking on 295 itself at the end of 295, we see 295 is going to be 295 South Kittery because it's a wide junction. So Kittery, no Boston, goes away entirely. Pretty lame, Maine, pretty lame. And on 195, we have the same thing. 95 South Kittery, 95 North Portland. So no Boston mention at all. Now we get exit 32. This was requested by Interstate Fiesta, and it is for Biddeford and Sanford. So thank you so much for that request. I wonder if anything else is in that area. Lyman! Oh no, Lyman! But it's not signed on the interstate, so I guess it's okay. When we get to exit 2, Kittery, we finally get 95 South Portsmouth and Boston. Maine finally acknowledges that something exists beyond its own borders, so nice of them to do it now, I guess? And we cross the bridge into New Hampshire. We just get a state line New Hampshire. We don't get that cool live free or die sign. Might be one further down the road, but I didn't see it. And we get South 95 to the Spalding Turnpike, Hampton, and Boston. So, you know, we gotta put a New Hampshire city on there. Tim Slager requested seeing exit 3B, and this also goes to Stratham, not just to Greenland and Portsmouth. So thank you so much for that request. I appreciate that. And this is also our last exit before the toll. At that exit, we see it is signed Portsmouth and Maine Points North and Hampton, Boston South. So still got that Hampton there. In Hampton, now we get 95 signed for Seabrook and Boston. So again, gotta throw that New Hampshire place on there. Finally, on the last exit in New Hampshire, we do get 95 South for Boston. At the first exit in Massachusetts, we get 95 South Boston. And after that first exit, Massachusetts finally gets around to welcoming us. And we meet 495 South for Worcester, and 95 is signed for Boston, as it should be. However, random interchanges, now we get 95 South for Peabody and Boston, instead of just Boston. Which isn't too bad. It gets worse. And here we're getting South 95 to 128, since 128 is what all Massachusetts people call the road that 95 currently occupies. And there's also independent 128 that we meet in Peabody as well. So signing 95 Peabody here wouldn't be too bad. Also, signing 95 at this one, instead of Waltham as Peabody, since 1 is going to Boston, is alright as well. But I would not sign it Waltham. That just seems lame. We're meeting 128 itself, and we're joining 128 as well. We see South 128 is straight ahead, and that sign on their left. We will be on South 95 Waltham, which again, very lame. Peabody wouldn't work here, but I would sign it. I'd go back to signing it Boston at this point. We meet US 1 once again, the US 1 freeway, so if you missed it the first time, you can get it the second time. And we see 128 is straight ahead along with 95. Putting Waltham on an overhead pull-through sign on I-95, a suburb like that, on a road of this caliber is absolutely ridiculous. This is extremely provincial by Massachusetts, who's done a pretty good job up until now, but this is really weak. Random interchanges, it is Waltham and Providence. Why? I mean, they talk about Portsmouth going northbound pretty much from the beginning, yet it's hard for them to talk about Providence going southbound, even though Providence is much more well-known and much larger than Portsmouth. Meaning I-93 south for Boston here. I would have signed 95 south for Boston up until this junction with I-93, and then sign it for Providence from that point. But we get no pull-through at this intersection. Michelle Bowe requested exit 51A, US 3 south for Winchester, so thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And we're meeting I-90 again, exit 39B. 39B all one exit, and 39A is a totally different road, so pretty interesting. And Zach R. wanted to see the 95 and 90 interchange from above, and we see it's quite complicated there with that Highway 30 stuff in there, and also because they have to deal with the toll apparatus of the Mass Pike. At that interchange on I-90, 95 is signed south for Dedham and Providence, and north for Waltham and Portsmouth. We're meeting I-93 in the southern end of the Boston Metro, and 95 is now signed south Providence. Finally. But we're not done yet. At random interchanges, we are on 95 South Attleboro and Providence. Can't just be some non-Massachusetts thing. Here is our exit for Foxborough Stadium. So notice the spelling here. I hate the Patriots. So the Patriots Stadium was always called Foxborough Stadium, spelled this same way here. And then whenever you saw Foxborough on ESPN or in the news, always the same spelling. But then when Tom Brady and Belichick started winning Super Bowls, all of a sudden they add the UGH on every ESPN or whatever thing you say. You know, we're not Foxborough anymore. Now we're Foxborough. I mean, come on. We have to add 3 more letters that add no sound to it whatsoever. I know that's the original spelling of the town, but still, come on. Didn't used to be that way on sports reports, and then it was after Brady. Patriots. And we got 495 south for Cape Cod and north for Worcester. 4 more miles till 295 and only 18 more miles till Providence. And now we're meeting 295 south for Woonsocket and Warwick. And this road also goes to Cumberland, Rhode Island, which is used by Melissa and Derek Depot, or Depot, who requested this interchange. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Crossing in Rhode Island, and we get an advisory. Exit numbers change summer of 2022. So we get mileage-based exits now. Yay! Looks like we're entering a toll road here, but they've got the tarp thrown over the sign telling us that, so I assume we are not being charged a toll as we drive under this mechanism here. And then we get Discover Beautiful Rhode Island, like 3 or 4 miles into Rhode Island. There's not a lot of Rhode Island to begin with. 3 or 4 miles, it's like what, like 40% of the state we've already driven through. Come on, you guys got to put it right at the border. And we pass the Capitol building in Providence right here. And in downtown Providence, we are signed 95 South New York. And that's quite a swing, and that is the correct answer. It should not be for New Haven. New Haven makes sense coming out of New York because of that 91 split and the angle that it has. But going south, the 91 exit doesn't matter so much anymore. So New York is definitely the right pick. Here is a look at downtown Providence. And we have our exit for 195 for East Providence and Cape Cod. 295, we meet at a Y intersection, so we get this road that will take us to 295 North. Real missed opportunity here. We could have a nice 95 South New York sign here, but they didn't put a control city. They just put a through traffic sort of thing. And Rhode Island getting in on the East Coast provincialism. We get some 95 South Westerly in New York. Can't just have New York. Rhode Island, it's a big place. We got to add something else. And Percs A has this request for exit 1 in Rhode Island, Hopkinton, and Westerly. So thank you so much for that request. Really appreciate that. All right, we enter Connecticut here. And in Connecticut, we are no longer on 95 South New York. Now we're on 95 South New London. Why? Come on. I mean, you could make an argument for New Haven. It'd be a bad one, but you could make one. But New London going this direction? Come on. And we cross the New London Bridge over the New Thames River into New London. And in New London, we now are signed for 95 South New Haven. We don't meet 395 going in this direction, so here is where we cross over 395 from its split going the other way. And Melissa Dela wanted to take a look at exit 72 for Rocky Neck State Park. I mean, Rocky works out a lot, but I'm naming a whole state park just after his neck? Okay. Alright. And here we cross the Connecticut River. It's quite wide at this point here. At random interchanges, we get 95 North, New London, Providence, and South New Haven, New York City. So we get New York on the map again here. And we are meeting 91 north for Hartford, so from this point, we will be on 95 South New York City. Interesting that even going this direction, they opt not to sign Bridgeport. Going the other way, we were bypassing Bridgeport in favor of a different Connecticut city, but now we are bypassing Bridgeport in favor of an out-of-state city. It's the right choice. I'm just surprised that they did it. And now 95 South gets no sign, and we get 25 and 8 for Waterbury, kind of a major interchange here. And at random interchanges, it is 95 South New York City. And here is a look at downtown Bridgeport. This is a fairly major road here too. US 7 for Norwalk and Danbury. This is a freeway in Connecticut. And we're meeting US 1 once again for Riverside and Old Greenwich. Exit 5, so just 5 more miles till the border. And here is where we cross the river back into New York State. So this is where we shall end our New England adventures, at the end of New England. All right, let's take a look at Todd's The Way It Should Be for I-95 in New England. I'm going to say it should be Northbound, New Haven, Providence, Boston, Portsmouth, Portland, Augusta, Bangor, Orono, Holton, and finally New Brunswick is the way I would go for there. So I would skip Bridgeport. I think that's the way to go. I wouldn't include New London. Southbound, Maine instead of Holton, and then Bangor would be the way to go. And then Portland, Augusta, up until the 295 splits. Portland, Lewisburg, just south of Augusta, but before the 295 splits. After 295, just Lewisburg, then Portland, then Boston. I would go Boston right from there. Peabody briefly after the US 1 exit into Boston, but then I'd sign at Boston again until I-93. Then Providence from that point, no Waltham whatsoever, and New York from Providence. And, of course, with this Todd's The Way It Should Be, I should take time out to say R.I.P. to the inspiration for it, Mr. Jerry Springer. So sad to hear of his passing. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Control City Freak. I really appreciate it. And we will be back next week as we continue the New York to DC section of I-95. So thank you so much. Until then, my name is Todd, and keep on trucking.